not the planes in the sky, not the ships at sea, not the men, nor the vehicles on the ground.
Ecto Radio.
The ghost hunting badasses.
It's time to kick ass and chew bubble gum, and I'm all out of gum.
Only on the Supernatural Radio Network.
Beer-fueled, whiskey-filtered paranormal radio.
And welcome to the premiere edition of the Graveyard Shift. I am the Hitman.
And I am Bob the Sane.
That's something we've been wanting to do for quite a while. Both Bob and I are very heavily involved and organized within the Southwest Ghost Hunters Association. And just over the years, we've had a whole lot of experience and stuff that we'd like to share. Different freaky things happen. And just wanted to do a radio show that was a little bit different than the other ones that are out there. So we're trying to do this coming off of 3 ghost hunts within a 24-hour period. And you can actually check those out a little bit. I think it'd be in October, probably?
Yeah, I believe they mentioned it was going to be in October and was actually going to be on the website.
Yeah, it'll be on the Lifetime Channel's website. So if you want to see what we look like, in case you didn't get a good enough look on the webpage.
God, that was bad.
Yeah, well, whatever. Genius borders on insanity, man. So
yes, so speaks the man holding the axe.
Of course. But yeah, we got a different format going on. Some of the stuff that we have going on, for example, we have the reality, which is kind of, well, Bob ranting. And in between there, we're going to tell you a little bit about various places we've been. Hopefully we'll have interviews with other ghost hunters, different people of scientific caliber as well. So ought to be a really great program.
Yep. So
let's hit it right off with the whole reality check thing.
Here is a reality check that won't bounce.
Now, the way I came up with this whole idea for the reality check is I cruise a lot of forums out there, different ghost hunting, paranormal-oriented forums, and I come across questions that sometimes just kind of make you go, what in the heck are you thinking? And it figures that, since this is so heavily ingrained within the ghost hunting community, we deal with it first, and that is the whole object of electromagnetism and electromagnetic field meters. And the first question that kind of got me was, there was a question I saw that said, why are we using electromagnetism to begin with? And this forum, the person writing the post, was claiming, well, back in the 70s there was a movie about a paranormal event going on, and they were using EMF field meters, and that's why it was, you're just doing what you saw on TV many, many years ago. And I figured this kind of definitely required an EM check, because electromagnetism is the name of the game.
It's the only part that can survive death, people.
And more than likely, see, the thing is, it's just such a radical concept. You're talking light, sound, human brain waves, everything's electromagnetically based, and that's why we're actually looking for that. There's different types of EM detectors. Technically, the camera itself is electromagnetic field meter in a way. It's detecting light that's in the visible portions of the spectrum. If you have a digital camera, well, you're actually able to get a little bit of UV, a little bit of IR in there as well. But yeah, that's the reason why. This is high school level science. It is not difficult. I guess these people slept during their science class. But that's what the deal is. But the whole thing with EM meters is it's gotten very confused, and we had a lot of pseudoscience that's been pumped into the ghost hunting community over the years, and so I thought that would be a good thing to address. So the thing to understand is there's 2 different types of meters. There's AC, or alternating current, and there are DC, or direct current meters.
Right. AC is always man-made. Always man-made. You will not find a naturally occurring AC field ever in your life, for as long as you live.
And that's the problem. Most of these meters that people are buying are AC field meters. If you go on eBay and you see, oh, here it is, the ghost meter, it's caca. It is not going to find you ghosts. It's going to find bad wiring in your house, but that's just about it. But so the DC signals are what you should be looking for. Human brain waves are DC. If there's something that does survive death, it's going to have to be DC. And the main meter that people use for that's we'll say the most affordable, is the natural tri-field meter. And this is when I stumbled upon not be used while holding it in your hand.
This also is a load of caca.
Because, I think it was Lloyd Albright that during one of his interviews he said, read the operator's manual. Now, in a way, this isn't the fault of ghost hunters, because when they send you a natural tri-field, you're lucky if you even get a little sheet of instructions.
Yeah.
But through the power of technology, we were able to find one.
Google.
And sure enough, in the operator's manual, it tells you how to use these things while holding it in your hand on magnetic setting. And the difference here is you have to hold it vertical, and it must be oriented in a north-south direction.
That's right. If you get it east-west, what you're going to do is throw the thing completely out of whack. You're going to start picking up... basically, you're going to pick up the geomagnetic field of the Earth broadside, which is going to give you a lot of really wild readings. Your needle's going to bounce all over the place, and you're going to think, oh my god, there's a ghost! When really, it's probably not. North-south is important.
And, that's kind of a thing that's cool about the operator's manual as well. It even tells you how to use the tri-field meter itself to find north and south. So obviously, yes, it can be used by hand. So we wanted to get that out there and let people know. This is probably the meter that most people can use in terms of affordability. But one of the things to understand, regardless if we're talking AC field meters, and there is a purpose of that, it goes in kind of a skeptical thing, which we'll talk about later, or using the DC meters, is that all these things do is just find where a field is. They're not going to give you any information whatsoever about that field, whether it's paranormal or whether it's not. The thing that's going to do that is the frequency, which that meter does not give you. So to get any kind of information, you have to couple an EM meter with a frequency counter.
Right.
Now, the frequency is going to be the things that's going to really set you off. Obviously, if I'm getting a 60 hertz signal, I'm probably getting a power line or something.
At least in North America. In Europe, you're going to be picking up a 50 hertz signal. That's what the electrical grids run on. Just handy little tip to remember. If you're picking up a 60 hertz signal and you're in North America, you are picking up the power grid. You're picking up the wiring in the house.
And there's actually going to be 3 different frequencies. There's associated with power lines, and the things about power lines as well. They can throw off EM as far as 200 feet. It just depends on the quality of the line. But kind of the stuff we're looking at in terms of interest is 40 hertz signals and below. The reason I think that's interesting is there's a lot of present medical research that has a hypothesis that the brain itself is operating on a 40 hertz frequency.
All right, the operating system, if you will.
And brain waves, of course, they go from like 5 hertz all the way up, to like I think it's 20 hertz or something. But so that's kind of like we're looking at very low frequencies. So I think the frequency counter is crucial. That's another question I keep finding out. How do you know if it's paranormal or not? You're not going to know unless you're using a frequency counter. Now, there's a couple of other cool ways you can look at the frequency. For a long time, we were using a laptop-based system made by Pico Technologies, and you can Google that up. It's PICO, and just you load it up to a laptop, you hook your sensor to it, and what's cool about it is you can actually record the readings and stuff as you're getting them. But the newest technology coming out is pretty radical. It actually has frequency counters built into the instrument itself. You can go into a room and you hit a button, and this thing will actually measure every source of EM, AC and DC, tell you the frequency, and you have it all right there in the palm of your hand, and it records it. You can download it to a laptop. If that isn't good enough, you can set it in a room, because it's also a data logger, and have it record any changes to the EM environment. The company that's making those is called Electrosmog, and we'll actually put a link up in our leaks section of the Ecto radio.
.com.
Yeah. Well, actually, it's ecto-radio.com, but yeah.
Which the people listening to this probably already know.
Yeah, well, hopefully. You never know, man.
That's true.
But anyway, we'll put a link up in there for those kind of meters. In fact, you'll notice on the ordering link, at this time of the broadcast, they are pre-order. So this is like literally cutting-edge technology. It's just cutting out. So it's pretty cool, man.
It's good stuff.
It's a ghost hunter's wet dream is what it is. Because it's just the information you can get from it.
Control yourself.
Oh, whatever, Bob. But anyway, let's go ahead and talk about scientific-grade meters real quick, because this is a thing that's also important. One of the things that skeptics are always going to bang you on is...
You said bang.
Yeah, right. is the quality of the meter itself. And what a scientific grade meter is, it's just a meter made to a specific specification. It has a certain degree of tolerance, a certain degree of resolution to it. Your scientific grade meters, they start around $500. They go up to, I think there was an EM meter I saw that went up as high as $16,000.
Yeah.
I know that's beyond the range of what most people can afford, but it's just something to be aware of. This is something that you get what you pay for. So, if you're a hobbyist and you're doing this for fun, sure, the Nitro Trifield will do it for you. If you're really trying to get hardcore information to prove the existence of the paranormal, then that's when you really want to start spending the money on your instrumentation. So you won't get the skeptics coming back and saying that, well, you're using primitive equipment and that could be flawed. So
yeah, if you paid $30 for an EMF detector, you're going to be lucky if you actually pick up the wiring in the house, much less anything else.
True. But speaking of, you said EMF. By the way, if you hear the term EMF, that is not a correct scientific term. EMF in the scientific community means electromotive force, not electromagnetic field, which is telling you how scientific those meters are. But we talked about there's a skeptical version that you can use the AC meters for, and it's predominantly based off something called electrical sensitivity. And once again, referring to the Lifetime channel, because we actually did a test on this woman.
Yeah, in our house.
And she seemed to, it initially appeared to us that that's what she was experiencing. However, she wasn't. But basically what it is, electrical sensitivity is like an allergy, but instead of being allergic to like pollen or dust or pet dander, it's more allergic to magnetic fields, magnetic and electrical fields. And in some cases they can even produce symptoms of like rashes, things.
Or like the classical stigmata, if
Yes.
you will, the markings on the body. In fact, one of the things that girl was talking about experiencing was what very dirty EM environment, and when you get a sensitivity to that kind of thing, it's almost like it branches out in a fractal pattern, which can form kind of basically handprints when it bursts the blood vessels, bruising. Well, as we were saying, though, that turned out to not be the case with her, but in a lot of cases it will be, and that's something you gotta look out for. Yeah,
and that's one of the reasons you can use these meters for. If you're finding areas in the house where there's very high AC levels, and those areas correspond to places where experiences of a paranormal origin are believed to have happened, then you can kind of get a hypothesis going on what's happening. There is a way you can do a field test, and it's just basically using a magnetic coil and switching it out between AC and DC modes. But to really, make an honest prognosis, you need to send them to a medical facility, someone that can do that on a professional level. So important to point that out as well.
Go to the doctor.
But there's another thing I keep hearing popped out, and that came up during that same investigation.
What?
And it's the whole thing with Persinger. And I wanted to set this straight on this, since we're talking about EM. I know a lot of ghost hunters have started to wise up. We were talking Persinger, 5 years ago, 6 years ago?
Yeah.
And, I'm starting to see it on other people's sites now.
Well, it makes sense.
But, see, a lot of people don't understand the whole gist of what Persinger did, and they don't understand it. They're trying to put it into too much of a skeptical viewpoint of it's all perceived phenomena, and that's not what's happening. What's going on with Persinger is Surrey University actually called foul. They said that they were not able to replicate Persinger's experiments, at which point Persinger said, oh yeah, I'm using a microwave carrier frequency in order to get this EM pulses through the skull of the person taking the test.
Right.
That's the first thing. The second thing is he's using micropulses of various frequencies. The reason I bring this up, I hear some people saying they're using AC field meters and we're going and looking for EM fields that can cause phenomenon that's been known to, replicate like paranormal experience.
Right.
And that's not going to happen. A 60 hertz field will do nothing to you.
Not without a carrier, like an out-of-second pulse.
Yeah, or something of that nature. But, the thing is, you have to understand there's pulses going on, and to do that kind of pulsing like Persinger does, it requires a sentience behind it. And of course, at a lot of these haunted places, as a lot of the people our listeners know, you don't have a mad scientist in there zapping you with EM pulses. So the fact that you're getting it, unless you're, but that's kind of one of the things to point out. If you are getting those kind of things with your frequency counters and you're getting those pulses, that's freakiness. That's some of the stuff that we're actually looking for. But anyway, let's go to a break, Bob, and we'll come back. We'll be talking a little bit about the town of Tombstone, Arizona.
Sounds like a plan.
Take a step into days gone by in Old Town Albuquerque, the city of legends and one of North America's oldest cities. Located near the Rio Grande River, Old Town is steeped in history and the paranormal. Dark alleys and laneways wind through the heart of this historic town area, and in the shadows lurk the shades of yesteryear. Walking through the town, one is surrounded by the memories of public hangings, duels, and horrific murders, all the while passing over forgotten cemeteries and unmarked graves, and past buildings known to still be visited by those who have passed over to the other side. Vengeful lovers, murdered soldiers, and mysterious specters await those who are brave enough to explore the secrets that lie within Old Town's darkest corners. New Mexico Ghost Tours is the original paranormal outfitter in the land of enchantment. Knowledgeable guides, historical accuracy, and stellar reputation combine to create an entertaining, informative, and unparalleled tour experience that enables participants to encounter for themselves the macabre underside of New Mexico. Our world-renowned presentation has been featured in national and international print and broadcast media, most recently highlighted by the Travel Channel in May of 2004. For more information, contact us today at 505-249-7827 or at our website, www.nmghosttours.com.
Hello, this is 911. What is your emergency?
Hello, 911, you've got to help me. There's a ghost in my trailer.
Excuse me, ma'am?
There's a ghost in my trailer. He's a flipping and a flopping and a flying all over.
Ma'am, please calm down. Ghosts do not haunt mobile homes.
Yes, they do. I saw it on hard copy.
Okay, what is the ghost doing?
He turned the lights on and off, and then he knocked on the door.
Are you sure it's not the power company?
No, he's right here on the couch eating Cheetos.
Okay, what does the ghost look like?
He's invisible. I can only see the orange stuff around his fingers and his mouth.
Sound familiar? This scenario happens every day at trailer parks across America. Experts estimate that 1 out of every 6 mobile homes is haunted by a ghost or perhaps a possum. You could be next. Here are some telltale signs. A can of skull mysteriously floats through the air. Blood drips out of your simulated wood paneling. The room is spinning and you're not even drunk yet. If you think your trailer may have an unwanted guest, please call
The Graveyard Shift with Bob the Sane.
Are you mad?
And the Hitman.
Let this be a reminder to you all that this organization will not tolerate failure.
Only on Ecto Radio.
Yeah, baby, yeah!
And we're back. Next up in our little broadcast here, we're going to talk about some places we've been. Specifically Tombstone.
I'm your huckleberry.
Yeah, Tombstone's cool. I'm actually kind of excited about this because, one, I found out there's a actual ghost hunter group that's in Tombstone now.
Yeah, we recently found
they definitely need one. And the other thing is I've discovered that TAPS has recently went to Tombstone.
Yeah, going to be on an upcoming episode in their
and that one I'm actually I'm waiting to see that one. So
yeah, but
we've been to Tombstone for so many years. We've been going there. And we decided what we're going to do on this segment is break open the secrets of Tombstone. So one of the first things we wanted to mention about... Now, when I say break open the secrets, if you're an Old West buff, you're going to know this stuff.
The gunfight at the OK Corral. I mean, how they had in an episode of Star Trek, they had Tombstone highlighted in it. Geek. Okay, we're geeks. All right. Yeah, the whole OK Corral thing. First secret. I'm just going to bust it open here. If you go to Tombstone... and you go visit the OK Corral, you're not actually visiting the OK Corral, folks. All right, I hate to say it, but it's true. The whole reason why they named it, or talk about the gunfight at the OK Corral is because it sounds a lot better than the gunfight at the vacant half of Lot 2 of Tombstone City Block 17 between Camilla's Fly's boarding house and photography shop and the house owned by William Harwood.
Oh my gosh, does that suck?
Yeah.
Yeah. Gunfight at the OK Corral it is. Okay, I mean, another thing about the whole corral is half of it's gone underneath the current marshal's office. We were there.
Yeah, and that's where that gunfight did actually happen. If you go to that specific spot right there by the marshal's office is where the gunfight supposedly happened. And oddly enough, the marshals had stuff happening, and they're the ones that asked us to come in and, can you look at our jail? We got some funkiness going on in there, and people don't like to be locked up. Well I don't think people like to be locked up, period, but they're claiming that the ghosts and stuff are messing with them. And oddly enough, that just happens to be where the whole gunfight with the Clantons and the Earps happened.
Yeah, oddly enough, I think they said that the only people that didn't seem to mind being locked up all that much were the people in the drunk tank. They just sort of poured him into the cell, and the guys passed out and puked on themselves. And they'd already been visited by the spirits. A few bars clanking didn't bug them at all. But the down below there in the basement was some pretty freaky stuff.
Yeah, and one of the things about Tombstone as well, you'll notice there's three camps of people when it comes to the whole OK Corral gunfight thing. You have the pro-Earp people who believe the Earps were right. You have the pro-Clanton people that believe the Clantons' version of the story is correct.
And then that the cowboy gang got a bad rap. And
then, of course, the people that, it happened, blah, blah, blah. They don't really care. But what's interesting, if you see the movie Tombstone, the more modern version that came out, they did kind of do some wrong injustice to the whole Clanton gang. Ike Clanton was the one that supposedly, got away and all that. And they said that he was murdered or something. I don't remember the exact part.
Shot in the back by one of the Earps.
But that's not true. He actually became a sheriff. If I remember correctly, it's the town of El Paso he became sheriff of for a short period of time.
Yeah.
Which adds validity to the whole Clanton thing. But if you look at the documents, the history, basically what happened is the Earps drew on them and said, drop your guns and put your hands in the air. Well, their guns were holstered. So what are you going to do? First command, drop your guns. You're going to go down to undo your gun belt. And when they did that, bang, 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 bang. And that's how it happened.
Well, it depends on who you talk to. I mean, you got two different news reports. On the one hand, you got the one guy who was a friend of the Earps, who ran a newspaper. And then on the other hand, you got the guy who was a friend of the Clantons, who ran a newspaper. Which newspaper are you going to believe?
Yeah, lots of controversy there.
Yeah. No, I guess the bottom line is nobody really knows for sure what the deal was. Everyone's pretty sure the Earps fired first.
But it didn't happen at the OK Corral.
But
the other thing is Boot Hill Cemetery, which is kind of cool as well. Yeah. I know a lot of ghost hunters go there. I mean, the people are actually fairly open to letting people go in and,
Yeah, in fact, they had a bunch of pictures that were taken by other ghost hunters, like actually in the shop, nice
hanging
nice
up in there,
book and everything, They actually had a couple of good freaky ones, too.
Also, there's a website, if you Google up the Clanton gang, there's this guy that lives down there. He's supposedly a descendant of Ike Clanton.
Yeah, the guy that walks around during the day in a cowboy outfit, complete with the red sash.
Yeah, and pretty good. He's gotten some strange pictures out there as well. But one of the things about Boot Hill that's important to understand is it's not all panned out to what it seems to be.
And in fact, most of it's not really there anymore.
Yeah, if you're walking around in the touristy part, it's important to know that a lot of those grave markers are kind of people's best guess of where people are buried. If you're driving down into Tombstone, in fact, there's only one road going through it, so kind of hard to miss it. The road itself was actually cut through
the old graveyard. Yeah, and actually where that Circle K is right when you're coming in, you can't miss it. It's right there. It's like the only convenience store in the entire town, and it's sitting right at one edge of where the graveyard used to be. So most of the graves are gone. Most of the ones that are left, nobody knows who's actually in them. So they've got all kinds of grave markers all over the gravesite with names on it, like the Clantons or whatever. And you look at it, and you actually first have to wonder if anybody's buried there at all.
Yeah.
And you're pretty sure it's probably not who they say it is.
The thing was, it was all trashed, and it was back in the 30s when they decided, hey, this is important to preserve. And the Boy Scouts were some of the first people who actually took action and started cleaning the place up. But I think they found 256 bodies throughout moving it. There were 13 they found when they were putting the road in. And the Boy Scouts are actually the ones that kind of marked some of the graves.
It was, again, best guess, though. And the best guess of a 12-year-old... Okay. There are some very smart 12-year-olds, all right?
Well, they had help from adults, I'm
sure. It's still the best guess of a 12-year-old.
But the Jewish section of the cemetery is also interesting. When we were there, and this is some controversy, we were told there was, that's the haunted part, and there's lots of things there, and ghost hunters get readings, and
it was desecrated, and
blah, blah, blah. Well, we found out through historical records, there's only one guy buried there now. The wall, which used to, I think, how they said it was 8 feet?
No, it wasn't quite 16. It was more like 8.
Most of it's gone. People have stole it. But there's a huge power line running directly over that part, which would explain a lot of the EMF readings that other ghost hunters have gotten. So it's important to know that when you're there and you're ghost hunting Boot Hill. It's worth going to, but understand that just because you get the graves aren't necessarily where people believe they are.
Right. So that's Boot Hill anyway.
Anyway, something else that's important to bring up about Tombstone is a lot of the buildings there are not original, and this is kind of funny. We've been there. We'd go and we'd drink beers with people after the ghost hunt, various locals. And I remember we were in Big Nose Kate's once, and they said, "Yeah, these ghost hunters were in here with a psychic," and the psychic was all like, "Yes, I was here in a previous life, right against this wall," and so we were back behind the bar giggling, going, "Should we tell them that was built in 1975? But mostly the Birdcage Theater is original, and the basements of some of the places are original. The Big Nose Kate's basement is original from the Grand Hotel. Crystal Palace Saloon has a very cool basement as well. It's original.
Yeah.
But a lot of it isn't. To get some of the original buildings, you actually have to get off Allen Street. But this is going to lead us into our next segment, which we like to call the War Stories.
War Stories. What shall we start with?
Well, I figured since we're talking about Tombstone, we'll talk about War Stories in Tombstone. And what this is something we're just talking about cool experiences or whatever you've had. And feel free to email us at ghost@ectoradio.com if you have a cool story. And if it's cool enough, we'll give you a call and pre-record it, and we'll put your story on the air. So, anyway, I figured you had an interesting war story.
Oh, yes.
Tombstone.
We were, actually it was the Buford House in Tombstone. We were there doing a media gig in Tucson with a radio station. And it's like 3 o'clock in the morning, and we're ghost hunters. And ghost hunters stay up all night. We're kind of vampires like that. And so I staggered into my room, like I said, 3 o'clock in the morning, and I was so tired that I just wanted to leave the light on. I couldn't be bothered to turn it off, So, like I was saying, leave one of the lights on over on the dresser, which is down sort of at the foot of my bed. And just as I was starting to drift off, there's a presence in my room. Now I know what you're thinking. Okay, it's the whole sleep thing, just when you're starting to drift off, you're starting to, the subconscious is kicking in, you're starting to see things that aren't really there. So my eyes kind of popped open, and I thought, great, okay, either nothing's going to happen and it's all in my head, or here it comes. Well, right about the time I thought, here it comes, the light over on the dresser turned itself off, and the one next to my bed turned on. I had my back to it. And I'm laying there, and I'm in no mood for this crap. So I say out loud, bug off, put the lights back the way they were. And then click, off turns the one next to my bed, and click, on turns the one down on the dresser, the way I had left it. And then I heard footsteps leaving, and the door closed. And I thought, showed him.
But that wasn't the end of it.
Oh no, there's more. 6 bloody o'clock in the frickin' morning. My eyeballs are bleeding, I'm so tired. The alarm goes off. That's one of these old wind-up alarms, no plug or anything. You actually have to wind the clock, and then wind the alarm, and set the clock, and set the alarm, all this stuff. The thing wasn't wound up when I went to bed, and that sure as hell did not set that alarm. 6 o'clock. I think I threw it across the room. I hope it didn't damage the wall.
Yeah, now that I can verify. I did hear the clock hitting the wall.
I stagger out of bed because I can smell breakfast cooking downstairs. The Buford House is now a bed and breakfast in Tombstone. I stagger down the stairs, and I go into the kitchen, and there's the one of the owners is sitting there cooking up bacon and eggs, and I start munching on a piece of bacon, and I look at him and say, "Hey, here's what happened." I tell him my story, and he just kind of nods and says, "Oh yeah, he does that to people all the time. That's the cowboy." I'm like, "Oh, great. I wonder if everyone else knew about this." As it turns out, they did. That's because you suck, Hitman.
Well, just hooking you up.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it is cool. There is a story behind there. It's one of the more tragic sweetheart kind of stories.
Yeah.
The guy attempted to kill his fiance and then killed himself, and he's supposed to be one of the ghosts that's there.
Yeah, he died. She lived in the house across the street.
See, Tombstone's kind of been cool. It was kind of one of the places where, when I started out more as a skeptic, and Tombstone was the definitive moment I had that kind of made me start thinking, maybe there's something to this
You
crap.
mean when something from like Evil Dead popped up and
it was neat.
waggled its rotting boob at you or something?
Well, not exactly.
Boobies?
What was neat about going there was when I first went, I got to meet Jim Kidd, who was a photographer, and a lot of the cool pictures you'll see of Tombstone were taken by this guy.
Yeah.
And what was kind of cool about it, him and his wife, very hospitable, will just let us in their house, fed us dinner and everything, showed us the negatives and all that. And then later on that night, we had the, skeptical investigation of Big Nose Case. And of course, being skeptical happened. And night's getting close, we're getting ready to, bail out of there. The bar's closed down. I'm talking to the bartender. And down at the end of the bar, we hear this noise. It just sounds like a glass moving around. Both of us turn, and as I'm sitting there watching it, it levitates off the bar about a foot or so, and then just chunks across the room. And it doesn't take a whole lot of logic to go, well, that's not a normal thing. Therefore, maybe it might be a paranormal thing. But that was only the beginning. Went back there a year later with our physicist dude, Carlton. Was
the infamous Shadow.
The mad scientist guy, yeah.
Yeah, he who works on stuff for the government, and he can't tell you what he's working on, or he has to
We
kill
think
you.
we think he's working on electromagnetic, EM pulse weapons.
Yeah, the thing is that when he says he'd have to have you killed, is he means it.
Yeah. Well, he's a germaphobe too, so. But anyway, that's probably from working with biological agents and crap in Utah desert. But anyway, we were in there, and another thing, we're going back, said, this glass thing was cool, we need to look at that again. And while we're in there, we're up by the front door, and I'm looking up, and they have this fake balcony, and they have two mannequins sitting up there, and they're all dressed in period garb and all that. I'm checking it out, and he walks up to me, and he says the same thing I'm thinking. If this place was dark, those would probably be pretty freaky looking. And while we're sitting there looking at the thing, the female mannequin, her head turns. Now, of course, our reaction was more of one, hey, wait a minute, they're pulling our legs, there's some mechanism, a button behind the bar that moves the mannequin's head. So we went over to Marcy, who was one of the managers of the place at the time, and we said, well, okay, we want to see the dummy. So, well, he's back in the back doing payroll. No, not your husband, the mannequin's up there on the balcony. And so she said, okay, sure, no problem. Big old grin on her face, ear-to-ear grin. Sure, go up and look. So we went up there, looked all over. We undressed them, we took them apart.
He undressed them.
There was no switch. There was no mechanism. We came back down.
Aside from the pump to inflate it.
And she actually smiled and said, did you find anything? We said, no. She said, well, don't get too freaked out by it. Everybody here has experienced that. She said one of her more freakier moments, she was closing up one night and was walking to the front door, and that same mannequin, the female one, her head just tracked her as she was walking across the room. She said, well, I'm leaving anyway. So I just said, well, good night. Locked the door and left.
Okay, that's creepy, dude.
Mannequins are always freaky.
Mannequins, dolls, and clowns. All right, that's... Homie, don't play that. Mannequins, dolls, and clowns are evil. They're all evil.
Even that one in Old Tucson, we had that mannequin.
Yeah, you guys had that incident with in Old Tucson.
Yeah, funky mannequin thing. But yeah.
Yeah. Well.
And now, for Bob the Same's Moment of Clarity.
Yoo-hoo, fat boy! Here's your target for tonight!
Yes, and now it is time for Bob the Sane's Moment of Clarity. This is where I get to bitch and moan about people doing things that piss me off. Now, I think we can all agree, fluffy bunny ghost hunters piss everyone off. You know why? It's because they don't freaking think. Ever. Not only are they bad ghost hunters, but they don't think about what they're doing. They don't think about the consequences of their actions. They don't think about how it might affect other people, other ghost hunting groups, the owners of the properties they're in, or anything else. Alright? Now, specifically what I'm on about right now is people who barge into places without permission. Now, if this was your house, would you want someone just banging in your door, kicking it in, and, oh, look, we're going to find ghosts here. Yeah, no. This is the trait of a moron. A complete butt monkey. Okay? You get permission before you go anywhere. At all times. You don't damage the place you're in. Because if you do, chances are they're never going to let anyone else in to do the same thing again. There have been numerous occasions that we in the Southwest Ghost Hunters have actually had to kiss an amazing amount of butt to be able to get in and do what we do, simply because previous ghost hunters had gone into the place, kicked holes in the walls, damaged stuff. There was actually a couple of graveyards, like one out in California, where they were going in, like it expressly said, posted, no trespassing. So what do? They put pictures on their website of them trespassing.
Which was brilliant, yeah.
Freaking brilliant, people! That's wonderful. And now, because of that crap, nobody can go ghost hunting there again. Unless they've changed their policy, but that's the Calico Ghost Town.
Well, look at Pike's Mansion down in Austin. Remember that big old frat house?
Yeah.
We had a charter just opened up in Texas, and they're doing it right. Got a hold of the owner, asked permission, and he freaked. He's like, "Wow, you guys are the first ones that ever asked permission to go in here."
Yeah, people actually asked me, "Oh man,
and,
wow!"
It's like they found 30 arrests in one night for that place trespassing.
Yeah, people going in and having parties, spray painting, damaging stuff. I mean, use some freaking common sense.
There's a ghostly talk called Ghostly Talk.
Yeah, it's a cool show actually.
And you got to check out their MySpace, because he did it's kind of a parody of Ghost Hunting 101. And you would love it, especially with this rant you're on right now, because it's like, yes, get Joe Blow down the street who works at the gas station and then break in and then do, and it's the whole parody of what a fluffy ghost hunter is when people don't understand that terminology. So we're kind of like on the same level with what he was ranting about in that, in his own special way. But yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, you just always keep in mind that you are representing yourself as a professional, hopefully. If your group likes to consider itself to be a professional group, don't go out and do something non-professional. Exactly. Don't go pee in a corner of the the hotel or whatever.
That's one of the things I think about taps. I mean, people have different opinions of that group. Personally, I think they're all right. And one of the things they do a great service to ghost hunters with is they have that very professional appearance when they go in, and introduce themselves. And that has done a lot for the ghost hunting community in terms of portraying this is kind of what a group's like. Before that, people didn't know what to expect.
Yeah.
The problem is, now people expect that type, that's the bar, I guess you could say, that was set on professional entry, and if you get this kind of stuff happening, it just makes everybody look bad.
It's not an unattainable bar either. I mean, all you have to do is keep your wits about you, contact the owner of the property you're going into. If you cannot find an owner on record, say it's a truly abandoned building, which there's, here in the Southwest we got ghost towns and old ruins and stuff. Well, there might not be an owner actually on record, but chances are somebody actually does own it.
Yeah, you can find out.
Don't treat it disrespectfully. Don't go knocking holes in walls. You can find out, even if you have to go look through, public land records that date back to the 50s or 40s or whatever. You will probably, if you follow the trail far enough, you will find someone who actually has responsibility for that property.
Yeah, it's usually, if it's not the city, it's a county. Yeah. A lot of your local sheriff and law enforcement offices usually have some kind of information. And if all that fails, even the Chamber of Commerce, you can get information from different places. That's how we found about Pike's Mansion, was through the Chamber of Commerce, actually.
Yeah.
So,
and actually the cops, that's a good thing to mention, is the police. Do, if you can, tell the local constabulary that you're going to be out there. Because otherwise, if they don't know you're out there, they don't know who you are, they're going to see a bunch of freaky people out there with flashlights waving, weird little black boxes around. What are they going to think? Yeah. Especially if it's a place that's been tagged by gangbangers or just had damage done to it, they're going to arrest your butt. And you will have earned your time in jail, dumbass. Contact the cops. Contact the owners. And don't make a mess. Thank you. Thank you.
Have another beer, Bob.
Oh, bitch, bitch, bitch.
Right.
That's what I always say when you go on rants. Yeah, pat, have another beer.
Pat, nod and smile.
But anyway, now we're going to get into a little bit more of back to the. Let's get back into more of some of the science. That's kind of interesting.
Right. You mentioned a little while ago. You were talking about Persinger's research and stuff, but we didn't really go into a lot of detail about that. And I figure there's probably going to be a lot of people who do not know what you're talking about. And we also didn't mention McFadden at all in the semi-field theory. So I thought maybe we could go over that a little bit.
No, let's do it.
Let's rock. So, Persinger, Dr. Michael Persinger, is a neuro what?
Dude.
Neurologist. Well, it's not just a neurologist. I mean, well, he founded
researcher, I guess you could say. Yeah.
I mean, he does stuff with brains. Okay. Up in Ontario at the Laurentian University, he actually founded their College of Neuroscience. And it was his research, which actually is used a lot by groups like PsyCop and other so-called skeptical organizations, when really what they are is hardcore disbelievers. Oh yeah, real quick, just so everyone knows, my definition of a skeptic is someone who doesn't know and questions. That is a skeptic, therefore I am a skeptic. I don't know. Someone who automatically disbelieves anything you tell them about this stuff, that is a bad scientist. PsyCop is loaded with bad scientists, but that's a rant for another week. So back to what I was saying. PsyCop and all these other groups like to use Persinger's research to try to debunk everything that we do, saying that it's all in your head. Your brain is being messed with by electromagnetic fields, and you're half. To create illusions, to make people see things. Most people that were in his little test chamber experienced floating sensations, kind of a disembodied feeling, like they were out of body almost. A couple of people suddenly recalled alien abduction scenarios, which we won't go into. But one lady, this is interesting, one lady had a very long, very detailed conversation with her mother who had passed away. And I mean, all kinds of detail, and it made her feel better. Just hey, mom's in a happier place. And really, what it was he was zapping her with this little helmet she's got on her head, making her see these things.
Yeah.
Well,
what's kind of cool about?
So so they like to use this as a means of debunking these things. But the problem is in a haunted location, you don't have some guy in a white lab coat sitting in a little control room zapping people that are in the house with the right frequencies and power levels of electromagnetic radiation. That just doesn't happen.
Yeah. Another thing to keep in mind that Ludwig and Oskop have also done the same kind of research. So it is known that EM signals, pulsed in various frequencies, low frequencies, can cause perceptual type of events, which you would consider to be consistent with hauntings, ghosts, that kind of thing. But I thought that was kind of interesting, because there's a whole big thing of, well, how do ghosts do what they do? And this fits so very well in with how you could create, a sound or a smell or a vision of a person,
Yeah, the actual the things affecting the senses.
So
olfactory apparitions, we call them. The smells, very common one. The seeing things doesn't really explain objects being moved, but that's another can of worms.
Yeah, that's a different one.
We'll get into that later.
But a lot of this, which kind of ties in, is the whole semi-field theory, which was done by John Joe McFadden, another guy, another type of a neuro dude, as we recall.
Neuro dude.
But his whole opinion is that consciousness is actually an electromagnetic field that surrounds the brain. And I thought ghost hunters would be all over this, because here it is. This is the thing.
This is the part that survives.
And I want to explain that in a little bit more detail, because the previous theory of consciousness, which people believed in, was called the quantum theory of consciousness. And the thing about that is they believe consciousness is created through life itself. And therefore, when you kill life, you kill consciousness, and that's why they were saying no possibility of survival beyond death.
Right.
But the semi-field theory is a little different, because it does now offer a possibility of survival beyond death. And, if it's capable of producing the same type of pulses that it does when it's inside the human body, maybe it might be able to do the same thing outside of the human body, and might explain kind of what ghosts are.
What I thought was kind of interesting, actually, kind of like the the brass ones he was displaying when McFadden first published his results. He put them out there and said, "Okay, guys, go ahead and disprove it."
Yeah, and I
dare you.
I found the forum where his original posts were.
Did you?
Yeah, it was kind of cool.
Yeah, we published his stuff very informally too. It wasn't. He didn't go through a full peer review process at first. He just said, "Hey, this is what I'm finding. Go ahead and poke holes in it," and nobody could.
But one of the interesting things, somebody was saying, "Well, how is this field self-generating?" Because it would have to be a self-generating field, and his answer had to do with it's an evolutionary trait that humans have acquired. And he goes into a lot of detail about that. But I thought that was kind of interesting because we always get questions about, well, can cats become ghosts or whatever? Well, if it's according to McFadden, they don't have the evolved
right
juju. Yeah,
gotta have the juju,
mental juju to be a ghost.
Yeah, which then but then again, there have been plenty of stories about animals, ghosts showing up. And my own wife has a pretty profound one involving a dog of hers that she had that passed away. So,
which of course he'll bring up now that she's walked into the room. Silence.
Sorry,
is it the bitching hour, Bob?
I was staring at her.
It's the bitching hour, isn't it?
Hour. She's practicing bitchcraft. Oh man, I'm a dead man now.
Yeah, that's saying. What are you going to do? Commit suicide?
The look I just got, people. Well, anyway.
I have an excellent idea. Let's change the subject.
Yeah, McFadden. What was?
McFadden, yes,
dude. Anyway, so one of the things that's kind of also interesting about the whole semi-field theory, a lot of people are talking about EM fields and all this, and there's several scientific laws which govern the shape that an EM field can take, and you can pretty much, dead reckon this whole thing out by asking a couple of questions, which is like, 1, does the ghost just stand in a corner of a room, or B, does it move around?
Yeah.
If it moves around, there's only one shape it can be.
A globe.
Yeah, it has to be spherical.
It has to be spherical because that is the simplest and easiest form for an energy matrix, if you will, to hold.
Yeah,
it can't maintain other shapes for long without actually having matter attached to it. Just the sun. Well, it's not really. Well, actually, I guess it kind of is a good example. The sun is a rough sphere. All of your. Well, we won't go into that. We'll save it for another time.
Well, it can go deep. That's part of the problem
when we start getting too far into
when you go into electromagnetism. It does get deep, and I can understand why a lot of people don't understand it, because if you pick up a book in Barnes and Nobles or something and you start looking at electromagnetism, it's going to start diving into calculus, and then calculus isn't enough, so it dives into vectors. Vectors isn't enough either, then it dives into differential equations, and even that hardly isn't enough to explain it. And so it requires a lot of complex math to fully understand it. It's so complex.
Well, doctorates specialize in like one kind of electromagnetic radiation and what it can do. X-ray specialists have a lot of you get a lot of that.
Yeah.
But on a basic level, we owe it to ourselves, if we ever want to be taken seriously by mainstream science, we have to at least have a basic understanding of the rules they play by, and the knowledge they have of the way the world operates. We have to have it.
Oh, definitely, I agree with that.
Otherwise, we suck.
And that's kind of why we're putting the information out there. Is a lot of this stuff is basic level science, but you got to keep in mind a lot of ghost hunters are doing this as a hobby, and they don't. It's not their interest. They're they work at Walmart, they work for a security service, they're plumbers, whatever. None of them are all into the whole science gig.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons we just got through writing that book for Maddox,
The
hopefully
Complete Ghost Hunter,
which will be out soon.
Methods to advanced techniques.
And that's the whole thing. We went in and we went in and we tried to take the science and toned it down so that people can understand a little bit of science that's behind,
We tried to tone it down. My wife proofread some of it, and the way her eyes glazed over. And
you are trying to kill yourself.
I'm trying to get myself dead.
Well, I'll find another co-host next week. There's got to be one somewhere.
Yeah, my wife can probably take over. She's a lot cuter than I am, too.
Yeah. Smells better, too.
Yeah. That much is a given. Oh.
Oh, drat these computers. They're so naughty and so complex.
Whether you run a local business or a Fortune 500 company, having your own website is increasingly becoming more important. But getting your own website can be a confusing and complicated venture. Web development, HTML, JavaScript, bandwidth, and hosting? What does it all mean, and how much do you need to know to have a presence on the World Wide Web? High Desert Web is a family-owned and operated business using state-of-the-art technology, including our own on-site web servers, open-source software, firewall-hardened servers, and 24/7 trouble tracking and monitoring. From a single homepage to a data-driven e-commerce website, High Desert Web has in-house experts available to assist you in developing a design for your site. We can advise you what type of website best suits your needs, help you market and advertise the finished product. Contact us today at 505-332-8064 or toll free at 1-800-930-7410.
Welcome back. Yeah, finally getting Bob. I had to take a break. Bob had to go out and make sure his sleeping bag was out in the barn and okay, sleeping with the goats tonight.
Yeah. Yeah, let that be a lesson to you, folks. Don't say things like that when your wife is sitting right in front of you. Or even when she's not. Because bad stuff will happen and you'll wind up sleeping with a pregnant goat. And people wonder how the goat got pregnant. Because there ain't no billy goat out there. But we won't discuss that right now. Just 'cause I live in the hills above Albuquerque. Yeehaw.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's do this. We were just talking about McFadden and some of the possibilities with Persinger's experiments,
right?
And we did talk about Tombstone earlier. So, what about we talk about some experiences in Tombstone which could relate, kind of tie in all this together.
Okay.
Good example would be, for example, one evening we were out. There's supposed to be a ghost that walks the streets of Tombstone after midnight.
Yeah, the guy with the boots on.
Yeah, so we were out there doing the rounds, I guess, walking up and down the streets all night. And at one point we did actually hear boots walking across the wooden floor. Did get an EM field from it.
Yeah.
And frequency, if I remember correctly, was around like 32 hertz that we were picking up. But that would be kind of consistent, possibly, with what I'm talking about.
An old perceptual haunting thing, them making you hear and see things.
But man, we get stuff, that's just totally whack. Like, remember in
Crystal Palace?
Yeah.
Yeah, the gambling wheel that started turning all by itself.
Yeah,
and at first, I swear, man, I thought they were hoaxing us.
Yeah, what's going on is they got a big, it's like a roulette wheel, but it's hung up on the wall. And we were actually starting EVP.
Right.
And all of a sudden that thing just went off, thing's spinning. And I think we got part of it on film. We didn't get the whole start of it.
Yeah.
But
well, and the interesting thing was I was tracking an electromagnetic field down the back hallway towards the men's room, where the lights were flickering on and off, and it was a really strong field, and all of a sudden it disappeared. I turned around to go try to track it, and that's when it happened. It's almost like whatever it was went past me and went out the door.
Yeah, that's another thing we were talking about the EM. Those fields are usually, if they're man-made or even natural, usually they're pretty static. They hang out in one area. They don't move.
They hang out where their source, where the source is.
Right.
This moved off by itself.
So yeah.
And I was pretty sure they were hoaxing us. I mean, the only person who, although when I thought about it later, the only person who really didn't react at all was the bartender.
Yeah. We need to call those ghost hunters down in Tombstone up and say, hey, is there a funky button hidden in that bar that person could have hit and make that thing?
I looked back there. I was looking for, I was kind of trying to surreptitiously look, see if there's any kind of a button or a switch that you would flip to.
Dude, we had media. There were cameras.
Yeah. And the people that were actually at the bar drinking, I mean, the looks in their faces was priceless. The one guy sitting there with his girlfriend, and both of them with their jaws embedded in their chests, white as ghosts. Yeah.
Got a good picture of me too.
Yeah.
Turning around. What the huh? But yeah.
But yeah, I mean, as I recall, the bar kind of emptied very rapidly after that too.
It did actually.
People bailed in a hurry.
I didn't think about that. Yeah, I thought it was just they were kicking everybody out, but maybe that was it.
Yeah, it could have been. I don't know. All I know is everyone saw it, and the thing was physically moving. We got it on the camera. If the camera picked it up, then it's not a perceptual thing.
Yeah.
You know, if the equipment saw it, then it actually was moving.
You know, speaking of Tombstone, also there was another interesting thing about Big Nose Kate's. If you go down in the basement and you go to the, now I gotta make sure I get my directions right. Well, let's put it this way: as you go down the stairs, you go to the right. You go to the far end of the right-hand side of the basement.
Right.
There's supposed to be when women are in there, they feel like they're being choked or can't breathe or whatever.
Now that's down where the was part of the brothel, wasn't it?
No, that's back. Well, it's where the dressing rooms are today. Okay. What it was back in the day is that was originally where the stairs were, and apparently what it was, the saloon was in the basement, and they had stairs from the outside that went down in there because they didn't want the dirty old miners messing with the clientele of the hotel.
Right.
So they had like a separate entrance for them. And Whiskers and Marcy were telling me a story about sitting on those steps, and they would turn the lights out, and they'd have their friends down there, and you just turn the lights out and listen, and they would have all kinds of different experiences and the whole choking sensation, feeling of something's there. And the stairs are gone now. They went with the remodel, and it's now the dressing rooms, but they still have the same phenomenon going there. When we check it out with the AC wiring, there's no wiring right there. The wiring is actually coming back from around the storeroom, going around the back end of the
right.
What's the cash register area now? So that's kind of cool. But then on the other side, you have the Swamper's lair, and of course the Swamper is supposed to be the main ghost of Big Nose Kate's.
Yeah, the guy down there with the trying to illegally dig his way into one of the silver mines.
Yeah, and supposedly, well, they speculate that a lady friend found where he was, keeping his gold, and killed him or whatever. But the shaft is supposed to still be there, and all that.
So you're saying he got the shaft?
He got the shaft.
He got the shaft.
And he's still there. That would suck.
Being shafted.
After being shafted, yeah. What kind of name?
Loyalty.
The Swamper. But anyway, we've gotten readings in there where they were nice enough to open the bars, and we actually got to go in there because it's like a bar door you get to look in.
Yeah,
we actually got to go in there, and we got the same kind of readings. But what was weird is we were getting them off the bottles, and they have all these bottles. If you look in there, like little medicine bottles back in the day, lined up on the wall, and those all came out of the wall when they were expanding the basement out. And when the Grand Hotel burnt down in one of Tombstone's fires, what happened was it collapsed part of it, and they just built literally over the remains.
Right.
So what happened is when they extended the basement out, they kept finding, relics. And they all went down into the Swamper's lair. But it was weird. That's what we were getting EM fields off of, was the bottles.
Yeah,
and they're glass
bottles. A bottle is not going to hold an EM charge.
Should not. Shouldn't hold any kind of magnetic charge. But that's what was... Because we thought, okay, wiring behind the actual thing. So we moved the bottles out into the floor and measured again. There it is. So that was kind of one of those, okay, the science doesn't jive with this. I don't know. But that was one where science doesn't give you an answer to the question,
Yeah, you got to keep looking.
Yeah, so.
Well, like the Bard of Avon once said, more things enter heaven and earth than are dreamt of in your philosophy, Horatio. All this, and I'm literate, too.
Yeah, right.
Well, any final thoughts there, Hitman?
Well, we're getting too low on beer, so we're going to have to wrap up the show. Because you're not going to be able to talk your wife into going getting more beer after what you just did on this show.
Dude, after what I just said, I'll be lucky to talk my wife into talking to me.
So, oh well.
Aside from throwing things and dirty looks and hurling curses.
Oh well.
Oh well.
That's it for this episode, but be sure to turn in on Saturdays at midnights, graveyard shift, and, well, we'll see you out there. If you got any questions, comments, whatever, please email us, ghost@ectoradio.com.
This isn't happening. Everyone look away, please. Nothing to see here.